The farmer gave her food, not knowing that she was hungry for something else. Rahim was a farmer who lived in a small, quiet village surrounded by endless fields of green and golden crops. Every day, the sun would rise over the distant hills, and Rahim would already be in the fields, tending to his crops with careful hands. Life had taught him the value of hard work, and although it was simple, he had always found joy in the small moments, watching the sunrise, listening to the chirping of birds, and feeling the soft soil beneath his fingers. His house was modest, made of clay and wood, but it was full of warmth. There was always a pot of food on the stove, a small fire that crackled in the evening, and a quiet peace that only life in the village could offer. One morning, as Rahim walked through the edge of his fields, he noticed someone sitting under the shade of a large tree. It was unusual for anyone to be at the outskirts of the village so early, and curiosity made him approach carefully. As he came closer, he saw a young woman, thin and tired-looking, sitting on the grass with her head slightly bowed. Her clothes were simple, and her feet were bare, dusty from the path she had walked. She seemed lost in thought, almost as if the world around her did not exist. Rahim felt a sudden surge of compassion for her. He had seen travelers come and go, but there was something different about this girl. She seemed heavy with sadness, yet there was a quiet strength in the way she held herself. Rahim cleared his throat gently so he would not startle her. "Good morning," he said, his voice soft and calm. The young woman lifted her head slowly and her eyes met his. There was a flicker of surprise, then a faint smile, almost shy, as if she had forgotten how to smile in a long time. Rahim introduced himself and asked if she needed anything. She shook her head but did not speak, her eyes looking somewhere far beyond the fields. Rahim noticed the hunger in her eyes, the kind that went deeper than the need for food. Yet, seeing her tired face, he could not help but think she must be hungry and in need of a meal. Rahim walked back to his house quickly and prepared a small basket with freshly baked bread, some milk he had brought from his cows, and a few ripe fruits from his orchard. He returned to the tree, hoping the young woman would accept his offering. "Here," he said, placing the basket gently beside her. "Eat, you must be hungry." She looked at the food, then at him, and her eyes softened. Slowly, she reached out and took a piece of bread, biting into it with a quiet appreciation. Rahim watched her, noticing how the bread seemed to give her a little comfort. But even as she ate, there was a distant look in her eyes, a quiet longing that Rahim could not understand. Over the next few days, Rahim visited her regularly, offering food and water, sometimes bringing small gifts like a warm blanket or fresh fruits. He tried to make her feel welcome, hoping that in time she would speak about her troubles or tell him her story. Yet she remained quiet, accepting his kindness with a gentle smile but never sharing much beyond a few words. Rahim began to wonder what had brought her to the village. She did not seem to have family nearby, and no one in the village knew her. There was a mystery about her presence that both intrigued and saddened him. As the days passed, Rahim noticed small details about her. She would watch the sun rise in the mornings, tracing its path with her eyes as if memorizing every ray of light. She seemed fascinated by the simple life of the village, the way birds sang in the trees, the smell of fresh soil after rain, and the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. She never complained about her situation, but there was a quiet yearning in the way she looked at the world, a desire for something more than what her eyes could see. Rahim realized that her hunger was not only for food. There was a depth to her that went beyond the physical, something that could not be satisfied with bread or milk. One evening, Rahim invited her to his small home to have a proper meal. The house was warm, filled with the aroma of freshly cooked rice and vegetables. He watched as she sat quietly at the table, picking at the food with careful hands. After a moment, she looked up at him and said softly, "Thank you for this." Her voice was gentle, almost hesitant, but it carried a weight of gratitude that touched Rahim deeply. He realized then that she had been starved not only in body but perhaps in heart. She needed more than food. She needed care, understanding, and perhaps even friendship. Rahim began to spend more time with her, taking her on walks through the fields and introducing her to the rhythm of village life. He showed her the streams where children played, the cows grazing in the meadows, and the small markets where villagers sold their handmade goods. Slowly she began to open up in tiny ways. She would hum quietly as they walked, or watch the children play with a faint smile on her lips. Rahim felt a sense of fulfillment in these moments, but he still did not fully understand her hunger, the one that went beyond what he could give. He hoped that in time she would find the courage to share her story, and he promised himself that he would be there to listen without judgment. The village itself seemed to welcome her presence. People were kind, offering small greetings and curious smiles. Yet the young woman remained reserved, as if protecting a delicate part of herself. Rahim observed her closely, realizing that true kindness was not just about providing for someone's needs, but about creating a space where they could feel safe to reveal who they truly were. He started to learn patience, understanding that healing and trust could not be rushed. Each day, as he tended to his crops, he thought about her and the subtle changes he saw, a brighter look in her eyes, a softer smile, a small spark of hope that had not been there before. One night, Rahim sat outside his house, watching the stars twinkle above the fields. He thought about the young woman sitting under the tree, about the bread he had given her, and about the unspoken bond forming between them. He realized that the act of giving food, though kind and necessary, was only a beginning. There was a deeper hunger he could sense, a need for understanding, trust, and companionship. He vowed quietly to himself that he would do whatever he could to be there for her, not as a savior, but as a friend who listened, respected, and cared. Days turned into weeks, and the young woman's presence became a quiet part of the village life. She still remained a mystery, yet Rahim felt honored to know her, to offer what comfort he could, and to witness the small but meaningful ways she began to engage with the world. He understood that life was not just about survival, but about connection, understanding, and the subtle ways people nourished one another's hearts. The simple acts of kindness he shared were meaningful, but the real journey was only beginning, a journey that would teach him and her both about true hunger, compassion, and the delicate threads that wove people together in ways no food could ever satisfy. Amina had arrived in the village carrying more than just the dust of the roads she had traveled. She carried memories of a past life, filled with struggles, unspoken sorrows, and dreams that had been left unfinished. Her journey to this quiet village was not one of mere chance. It was a search for a new beginning, a place where she could quietly heal and perhaps find a sense of belonging. While Rahim saw her as someone in need of food and shelter, Amina knew that her deepest hunger was not for bread or milk. Her hunger was for understanding, for kindness that went beyond the physical, for someone who would notice the silent ache in her heart. Though she accepted Rahim's meals and his gentle gestures, Amina often sat alone under the tree, gazing at the fields as if looking for something she could not yet name. She would watch the farmers working, their hands steady, their faces calm, and feel a quiet envy. They were part of a rhythm that she had never known, a harmony that seemed simple but was deeply satisfying. Her own life had been chaotic, filled with moments of pain and loneliness that made her wary of trusting anyone completely. Yet there was a quiet hope within her, a fragile belief that she might find solace in this village. The villagers noticed her presence slowly. Some were curious, some friendly, and others merely indifferent. They had their routines, their families, and their own lives, but the kindness in small gestures was something Amina could not ignore. A smile from a child, a nod from a neighbor, the warmth of the sun on her face. These were small comforts she had almost forgotten existed. And yet, even with these small joys, there remained an emptiness inside her. It was an emptiness that could not be filled by food, shelter, or even friendly words. It was a longing for connection, for someone to see her not just as a stranger, but as a person with feelings, thoughts, and dreams. Rahim continued to care for her in his simple, quiet way. He brought her food, ensured she had a safe place to rest, and tried to engage her in conversation. But he did not fully understand the depth of her hunger. He would ask about her favorite foods, what she liked to eat, and whether she was comfortable, thinking that these questions were enough. Amina would answer politely, sometimes with a faint smile, but her heart remained distant. Her eyes would drift to the horizon, as if searching for something beyond the village, something that spoke to the desires she could not yet voice. At night, when the village was quiet and the fields were bathed in the soft silver of moonlight, Amina would sit outside her small shelter, thinking about the life she had left behind. She remembered her family, her home, and the dreams she had once held. Some of those dreams had been crushed by circumstance, others by people who did not understand her, and some by her own fears. But even in the darkness, she felt a tiny spark of hope. She wanted to believe that there was still a chance for happiness, for fulfillment, for a life where her voice could be heard and her heart could be understood. Rahim began to notice the small ways she expressed herself without words. She would carefully arrange wildflowers she found in the fields, creating delicate patterns on the ground. She would hum quietly as she walked, a soft melody that spoke of memories and feelings she could not yet share. Sometimes she would watch the sunset for long minutes, her eyes reflecting the colors of the sky, lost in thoughts that seemed far away. Rahim realized that these were not signs of sadness alone. They were glimpses into her soul, indications that she carried a rich inner world, full of emotion, creativity, and longing. One morning, Rahim found her sitting by the stream, watching the water flow over smooth stones. He approached slowly, not wanting to disturb her. "The water looks calm today," he said gently. Amina looked at him and nodded, a quiet acknowledgement. Then she spoke softly, almost to herself. "It feels like it carries everything away." Rahim did not fully understand what she meant, but he sensed the weight behind her words. She was not speaking about the water alone. She was speaking about the burden she had carried for so long, the pain and loneliness she had endured, and the desire for someone to notice and care without asking for explanations. Rahim started to try harder to connect with her beyond the surface level. He began asking her opinions on small things, what flowers to plant, which paths were best to take for walking through the fields, and even what she thought of the village traditions. At first, Amina responded quietly, almost hesitantly. But over time, she began to open up in little ways. She would suggest planting certain flowers near the house or share her thoughts about the birds in the trees. These small contributions seemed to bring her a sense of purpose and belonging that she had not felt in a long time. Rahim realized that what she needed was not just care, but respect, attention, and acknowledgement of her thoughts and feelings. One day, Rahim invited her to help him in the fields, hoping to teach her a few simple farming skills. At first, Amina was unsure, hesitant to engage physically after so much time alone. But as they worked together, planting seeds and tending to young crops, a quiet connection began to form. Rahim noticed her attentiveness, her careful hands, and her ability to see details he might have missed. She, in turn, began to appreciate his patience, his steady presence, and the way he treated her as an equal rather than someone to be pitied. The work became a bridge between them, a way for her to express herself and for him to understand her deeper needs. As the days grew warmer and the crops flourished, Amina slowly began to participate more in village life. She would visit the small market, watch the children play, and even help prepare simple meals for neighbors. Each small action was a step toward healing, a sign that she was beginning to feel part of a community. Yet, she still carried a quiet longing, an awareness that the hunger in her heart was not entirely gone. She wanted companionship, understanding, and the freedom to express herself fully without fear of judgment. Rahim sensed this slowly, realizing that his initial efforts, though kind, were not enough to satisfy the deeper needs of her spirit. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Rahim and Amina sat quietly under the large tree. The breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers and fresh soil, and for a moment there was a peaceful silence between them. Amina spoke softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I never thought I would find a place where I could feel safe." Rahim looked at her, understanding for the first time that her hunger was not just for food. It was for acceptance, safety, and someone who would notice her true self. In that moment, he felt a profound responsibility not only to care for her needs, but to nurture the person she was becoming inside. From that day forward, Rahim's perspective changed. He began to focus not only on providing food and shelter, but on creating a space where Amina could be herself. He encouraged her to share her thoughts, listened to her stories, and included her in decisions about the farm and their daily routines. Amina, in turn, began to trust him more, revealing small parts of her past, her dreams, and her hopes for the future. Their relationship transformed from one of simple charity to one of mutual respect and understanding, a bond built on the recognition of each other's humanity. Amina's journey in the village continued slowly, each day bringing new moments of discovery, healing, and quiet joy. She learned that true comfort was not only in the food she ate or the shelter she had, but in the connections she formed, the understanding she received, and the freedom to express herself without fear. Rahim learned that true kindness was not just about meeting visible needs, but about recognizing the hidden hunger that resides in every human heart. Together, they began to understand that the simplest gestures, listening, observing, including, could nourish the soul in ways nothing else could. As the days passed, small moments began to weave a delicate connection between Rahim and Amina. It was not the kind of bond that was obvious to everyone. It was quiet, gentle, and filled with subtle understanding. Rahim began to notice the little ways Amina interacted with the world, and he realized that there was much more to her than he had first understood. She observed everything carefully, the way sunlight fell on the fields, the patterns in the clouds, the behavior of birds and animals around them. She had an eye for detail that fascinated him. What was most remarkable was that she found beauty in the simplest things, even in moments that many others overlooked. One morning, Rahim invited Amina to help him repair a small fence at the edge of his field. At first she hesitated, unsure whether her hands were strong enough for the work. Rahim smiled gently, reassuring her that she could do it and that he would guide her. As they worked side by side, she began to relax, her movements becoming more confident. She discovered a sense of accomplishment in the work, and Rahim quietly admired her determination. They laughed together at small mistakes, when a post leaned slightly or a nail bent, and those moments of shared humor became a bridge between their hearts. Rahim began to understand that her hunger was not just for survival or physical comfort, but for recognition, trust, and companionship. During their work, Amina began to talk more. She shared small stories about her childhood, about how she used to watch the sunrise with her mother and help in a small garden back home. Her voice was soft but filled with warmth and memory. Rahim listened attentively, asking gentle questions, and she responded with growing ease. Slowly, she revealed how difficult her journey had been, how lonely the past months had felt, and how much she longed for a place where she could feel safe and understood. Rahim felt a mixture of sadness and admiration. He was moved by her resilience and the quiet strength she carried despite the hardships she had faced. As they finished the work on the fence, Rahim suggested they take a short walk through the fields before the sun became too strong. Amina agreed, and they walked slowly, observing the crops swaying in the breeze, the bees buzzing from flower to flower, and the soft rustle of leaves overhead. Amina began to hum a gentle tune, a melody that seemed to capture both her sadness and her hope. Rahim realized that this was her way of expressing herself, her way of communicating feelings that words could not capture. He felt privileged to witness these moments, understanding that her true hunger was for someone to see her inner world and accept it without judgment. Over the next few weeks, Amina gradually began participating in village life more actively. She would help neighbors carry water, tend small gardens, or assist with preparing meals for local gatherings. Each act, no matter how small, gave her a sense of belonging she had not felt in a long time. The villagers started noticing her more, not just as the quiet young woman who had arrived at the village edge, but as someone with gentle strength, helpful hands, and a kind heart. Even simple greetings from children or nods from shopkeepers seemed to warm her, and she responded with quiet smiles, showing a growing confidence in herself. One afternoon, Rahim and Amina were walking along a narrow dirt path that led to a small hill overlooking the village. The view was breathtaking, with the fields stretching out like a patchwork quilt and the sun casting long golden shadows over the land. Amina sat on a large rock, gazing at the scene before her. She seemed lost in thought, and Rahim sat beside her quietly, giving her space to reflect. After a few minutes, she turned to him and said softly, "It feels peaceful here. I never thought I would find a place like this." Rahim nodded, understanding that peace, trust, and connection were beginning to fill the spaces in her heart where loneliness and fear had once lived. Rahim began to notice that Amina's way of expressing herself had shifted. She would suggest ideas for planting flowers around the house, arranging fruits and vegetables in neat patterns, or creating small decorations from natural materials. These simple acts were not just about aesthetics. They were her way of shaping her surroundings, making them feel welcoming and warm. Rahim admired her creativity and thoughtfulness, and he began to recognize that her hunger was deeply tied to a desire for agency, for the ability to make choices and leave her mark on the world around her. One evening, as the village prepared for a small local festival, Rahim asked Amina if she wanted to join in the preparations. At first, she was hesitant, unsure how much she would fit in, but with gentle encouragement she agreed. She helped arrange lanterns, prepare food, and create decorations. Rahim observed her interacting with others, smiling and laughing quietly as she shared her ideas. For the first time, it seemed as if she was fully present in the moment, no longer hiding behind caution or fear. The villagers, in turn, welcomed her presence, noticing her contributions and showing appreciation for her efforts. During the festival, Amina danced with the children, her laughter ringing clearly in the air. Rahim watched her, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. He realized that the meals he had offered her were only the beginning of the care she needed. What she truly hungered for was connection, validation, and the freedom to express herself without fear. The joy he witnessed in her that night made him understand that true kindness meant nurturing the soul as much as the body. It was a lesson he had learned gradually, through patience, observation, and a willingness to see beyond the surface. Amina's growth was not without its quiet moments of reflection. Some evenings she would sit alone, watching the stars, thinking about her journey, and contemplating the possibilities of her new life. She remembered the hardships she had endured, the loneliness, the lack of understanding, the feeling of invisibility. But now she also felt gratitude for the small gestures of care and respect that Rahim had offered her. She realized that healing was not instantaneous. It was a process, one that required patience, courage, and trust, and she was beginning to find all three in this small village. Rahim, too, reflected on the lessons he was learning. He understood that offering food, shelter, or safety was not enough to meet the deeper needs of a person. True care involved listening, observing, and nurturing the emotional and social aspects of someone's life. By recognizing Amina's hunger for understanding, companionship, and self-expression, he had begun to provide her with the support that allowed her to grow and flourish. He felt honored to be a part of her journey, realizing that the bond they shared was slowly transforming both of their lives. As Part 3 draws to a close, Amina had begun to bloom quietly, like a flower in the spring. Her confidence grew, her laughter became more frequent, and her interactions with the villagers became richer. Rahim continued to guide her gently, always attentive to her needs, always patient, always present. The connection between them deepened, not through grand gestures but through small, meaningful moments, shared work, quiet walks, attentive listening, and simple acts of kindness. The village, once a place of mere survival for Amina, was becoming a place of growth, understanding, and emotional nourishment. In the golden light of another sunset, Rahim and Amina stood together at the edge of the fields. The breeze carried the scent of the harvest, the soft hum of life in the village surrounded them, and for a moment there was silence. It was not a silence of emptiness, but of peace, a shared understanding that their journey was unfolding, that the invisible hunger Amina had carried was beginning to be nourished. And though there were still lessons to learn, challenges to face, and moments of doubt ahead, both of them felt the quiet joy of connection, a joy far deeper than any simple act of feeding, a joy that touched the heart and soul in ways that words alone could not capture. As the season slowly changed, the bond between Rahim and Amina grew stronger, shaped not by grand gestures but by quiet understanding and shared experiences. By now, Amina had begun to feel a sense of belonging in the village that she had never known before. Her days were filled with small but meaningful activities, tending to the fields alongside Rahim, helping villagers with their daily tasks, and participating in community gatherings. Yet what mattered most to her was not just these actions, but the recognition that she was seen, heard, and respected for who she truly was. One morning, as the sun rose and cast golden light across the fields, Rahim suggested they take a walk to the small hill at the edge of the village. Amina agreed, carrying a small basket of fresh flowers she had picked from the garden. The walk was quiet at first, both of them absorbed in the beauty of the morning. Birds chirped in the trees, the air was filled with the scent of fresh grass and earth, and the world seemed peaceful in a way that only early mornings could bring. Rahim noticed Amina's thoughtful expression and realized that she was taking in not just the scenery but the sense of life around her. She had begun to notice details and moments that many people overlooked: the way sunlight danced on the leaves, the ripple of water in the small stream, the gentle sway of the crops in the breeze. As they reached the hilltop, Amina set down her basket of flowers and gazed out over the village. "It's beautiful," she said softly, her voice carrying both awe and contentment. Rahim smiled, seeing the peace in her expression. For the first time, he understood that this peace was not just about the physical surroundings. It was about connection, understanding, and the feeling of being part of something larger than herself. He realized that the hunger she had carried for so long was being satisfied not by food or shelter alone, but by recognition, respect, and the opportunity to contribute to the world around her. In the weeks that followed, Rahim made a conscious effort to include Amina in more decisions about the farm and village activities. He asked her opinions on which crops to plant, how to care for the animals, and even how to arrange flowers and produce for the village market. At first, she had been hesitant, unsure of her own abilities, but Rahim's gentle encouragement helped her gain confidence. Amina began to see that her ideas mattered, that she could have an impact, and that her voice was valued. This realization gave her a sense of purpose she had never felt before, and it strengthened the bond she shared with Rahim. One afternoon, while working together in the fields, Amina shared a story from her childhood, a memory of planting seeds with her mother and watching them grow over the seasons. She spoke of the joy she had felt in nurturing life, the pride in seeing small things flourish, and the sadness of losing that connection as life became more difficult. Rahim listened attentively, understanding that these memories were more than nostalgia. They were a reflection of her inner world, her capacity for care, and her deep desire to contribute meaningfully. He realized that her hunger was for acknowledgement and participation in the life around her, not just for survival or comfort. Amina also began to show signs of creative expression. She started arranging flowers and plants around the farm, creating small decorations from natural materials, and even painting simple patterns on wooden fences. Rahim admired her talent and encouraged her to continue. He saw that these small acts were not merely hobbies. They were expressions of her identity, her way of leaving a mark on the world, and a form of nourishment for her spirit. By supporting her creativity, Rahim was helping her satisfy the hunger that had remained unseen for so long, the need for self-expression, recognition, and a sense of agency. During this time, the villagers also began to notice Amina's transformation. She was no longer the quiet, reserved young woman who had arrived at the edge of the village. She was active, confident, and contributing in meaningful ways. Villagers sought her advice on gardening, cooking, and organizing small events. Children looked up to her as a kind and patient figure. Even those who had once been indifferent or skeptical began to show appreciation for her presence. For Amina, these small acknowledgments were profound. They reinforced the sense of belonging and connection that had been absent in her life, allowing her to grow emotionally and socially. One evening, as the village prepared for another small festival, Rahim and Amina worked together to organize decorations and food arrangements. The atmosphere was filled with laughter, music, and the aroma of freshly cooked meals. Amina moved with confidence, coordinating tasks and offering suggestions, while Rahim observed proudly. At one point, a group of children gathered around her, asking questions and seeking her guidance. She smiled warmly, sharing her knowledge patiently and encouragingly. Rahim noticed the sparkle in her eyes and the ease with which she interacted with others. It was a visible sign of her growth and the fulfillment of the deeper hunger she had carried for so long. That night, after the festival had ended and the village had settled into quiet, Rahim and Amina sat together outside his home, gazing at the stars. The air was cool and the fields around them were bathed in soft moonlight. Amina spoke softly, reflecting on her journey since arriving in the village. "I never imagined I could feel this, part of something," she said. "I always thought I would remain invisible, unnoticed." Rahim nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He realized that true care and kindness involved more than providing physical needs. They required attention, patience, respect, and the willingness to help someone find their place in the world. Over the following weeks, Rahim and Amina's bond deepened further. They shared stories, dreams, and hopes for the future. Amina began to open up about her aspirations, discussing the things she wished to learn, the skills she wanted to develop, and the ways she hoped to contribute to the village. Rahim listened, offered guidance when needed, and encouraged her to pursue her interests. The trust between them grew, and with it came a profound sense of mutual respect and understanding. Amina's laughter became more frequent, her confidence more apparent, and her sense of belonging fully rooted in the village community. One morning, as they tended to the crops together, Amina paused to observe a small bird building its nest in a nearby tree. She smiled and said softly, "Even this little bird is hungry for a home, just like I was." Rahim looked at her, realizing that she had begun to understand the nature of her own journey. She recognized that hunger came in many forms, not just physical but emotional and spiritual, and that it could be fulfilled through care, attention, and connection. He felt a deep sense of pride and humility, knowing that their shared experiences had helped her find this insight. As the harvest season approached, Amina played a significant role in preparing the fields, collecting produce, and helping organize storage and distribution for the villagers. She had grown not only in skill but also in confidence and presence. Rahim noticed that she no longer sought validation in quiet gestures alone. She had begun to assert herself, make decisions, and inspire others through her actions. Her hunger for recognition, understanding, and emotional nourishment was now being met, and she radiated a quiet strength that touched everyone around her. By the end of Part 4, Amina had transformed from a quiet, reserved young woman into a confident, respected, and fully participating member of the village. Rahim had learned a profound lesson. True kindness goes beyond meeting physical needs. It involves understanding the deeper desires of the heart, nurturing emotional growth, and creating space for individuals to express themselves and find their place in the world. Their bond, now built on trust, respect, and shared experiences, was a testament to the power of empathy, patience, and genuine care. Amina had finally begun to satisfy the hunger she had carried for so long, a hunger not for food, but for connection, understanding, and the chance to be truly seen. By now, Amina had become an integral part of the village. She moved with confidence, spoke with warmth, and participated in the daily life of the community with a sense of belonging that had once felt impossible to her. The quiet girl who had arrived weeks ago, weary and distant, had grown into a young woman who smiled freely, laughed often, and contributed to the lives of those around her. Yet, what was most remarkable was not just her visible changes, but the inner transformation, the fulfillment of the hunger that had remained unseen for so long. Rahim watched this transformation with a quiet pride that was hard to describe. He remembered the first time he had seen her sitting alone under the tree, her eyes distant and her spirit heavy. He had offered food, believing that it would be enough to help her. But as the days passed, he had come to understand that what she needed most was not food alone. She hungered for understanding, companionship, recognition, and the freedom to express herself. The meals he had given her had been a beginning, but the true nourishment came from patience, empathy, and genuine care. One morning, Rahim and Amina set out to inspect the fields together. The sun was rising over the horizon, casting golden light on the crops. Amina walked with ease, her hands brushing against the tall stalks of wheat, feeling their texture and observing their growth. She smiled at the sight of the healthy crops and noted small things that needed attention. Rahim noticed her attention to detail, the thoughtful way she assessed the fields, and the quiet confidence in her movements. He realized that she had not only learned from him, but had developed her own insight and understanding of the world around her. As they worked, Amina shared stories of her past dreams and aspirations. She spoke of wanting to help others, to create beauty, and to be a part of something meaningful. Rahim listened, encouraging her to pursue these goals and assuring her that the village could be a place where her talents and ideas mattered. Amina's eyes sparkled with hope and excitement, emotions she had not felt in a long time. For the first time, she truly believed that she had a place where she could grow, contribute, and be appreciated for who she was. The villagers, too, had come to see Amina in a new light. Children sought her guidance, neighbors asked for her advice, and even strangers who passed through the village noticed her warmth and kindness. She had become a source of inspiration for those around her, demonstrating through her actions that resilience, kindness, and patience could transform not only one's own life, but the lives of others. Her presence brought a subtle yet powerful energy to the community, one that strengthened the bonds between people and fostered a sense of unity and care. One evening, after a long day of work, Rahim and Amina sat outside his home, watching the sun set over the fields. The sky was painted in shades of orange, pink, and purple, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers and freshly tilled soil. Amina looked at Rahim and spoke softly. "I never imagined I could feel this happy, this accepted. You have given me more than I ever expected." Rahim smiled, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. He understood that the happiness she now felt was not just the result of his actions. It was the result of mutual trust, respect, and the shared experiences that had allowed her to heal and flourish. In the weeks that followed, Amina began to take on even more responsibilities within the village. She helped organize gatherings, taught children about planting and gardening, and assisted neighbors in preparing for local festivals. Each task she undertook was infused with care and thoughtfulness, reflecting her growing confidence and the deep connection she now felt with the community. Rahim continued to support her, offering guidance when needed, but allowing her to lead and make decisions independently. He recognized that true fulfillment came from enabling someone to find their own voice and contribute in their own way. One afternoon, as they walked along the edge of the village near the small stream, Amina paused to watch the water flow over the rocks. She smiled softly and said, "This stream reminds me of life. It keeps moving, carrying everything along, yet it always finds its path." Rahim nodded, appreciating the wisdom in her words. He realized that Amina had not only healed, but had gained insight and perspective that would guide her in the future. Her journey had transformed her from a quiet, reserved girl into a thoughtful, observant, and capable young woman, ready to face the world with confidence and hope. The village continued to thrive, and Amina's presence became a symbol of resilience, compassion, and the power of understanding. She had learned to balance her own needs with those of others, finding joy in helping, guiding, and nurturing the people around her. Rahim observed this growth with quiet satisfaction, knowing that the bond they had formed was not only meaningful but life-changing for both of them. The lessons they had learned about patience, empathy, and the deeper needs of the heart had enriched their lives in ways neither could have anticipated when she first arrived at the village edge. One evening during another local festival, Rahim and Amina stood together, watching children dance and villagers celebrate. Amina was smiling brightly, her laughter blending with the music and voices around her. She turned to Rahim and said, "I feel like I belong here. I have a place and I can contribute. I am no longer hungry for the things I once longed for." Rahim felt a surge of emotion, recognizing that her words captured the essence of her journey. She had found fulfillment, not through food or shelter alone, but through connection, understanding, and the opportunity to be truly seen and valued. In the quiet moments that followed, Rahim reflected on the journey they had shared. He remembered the first time he had offered her food, thinking it would be enough to help her. He realized now that true kindness and care went far beyond the physical. It required insight, patience, and a willingness to nurture the deeper needs of the heart. By creating space for Amina to express herself, gain confidence, and form meaningful connections, he had helped her achieve a sense of fulfillment that was lasting and profound. And in doing so, he had also grown, learning the power of empathy, observation, and genuine human connection. Amina, too, reflected on her journey. She had arrived at the village weary, cautious, and uncertain of her future. Through the patience and kindness of Rahim, she had discovered a place where she could heal, grow, and belong. She had found not only physical sustenance, but emotional and social nourishment. The quiet moments, the shared work, the conversations, and the opportunities to contribute, all of these had allowed her to flourish. She understood now that true hunger was not always for food alone. It could be for understanding, respect, companionship, and the chance to be fully herself. By the end of the season, Amina had become a guiding presence in the village. She assisted Rahim and other villagers, nurtured the children, and shared her insights with anyone willing to listen. Her confidence was inspiring, and her spirit brought warmth to everyone she encountered. Rahim watched her with quiet pride, knowing that the journey they had shared had changed both of their lives. The connection they had built was rooted in empathy, trust, and respect, a bond that would endure through the years. As the sun set over the fields one final evening, Rahim and Amina stood together on the hilltop, gazing at the golden horizon. The village lay quiet below, bathed in the soft light of dusk, and the air was filled with the gentle sounds of nature. They stood in silence, both reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment. Amina spoke softly, "Thank you for helping me find my place, for seeing me, and for giving me more than I could have imagined." Rahim smiled, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You found it yourself," he said. "I only walked beside you." And so, the story came to its conclusion, not with grand celebrations or dramatic events, but with quiet fulfillment, mutual respect, and the deep understanding that the most meaningful acts of kindness are those that nourish the heart and soul. Amina's hunger had been satisfied, not by food alone, but by recognition, connection, and the freedom to grow and express herself. Rahim had learned that true care is measured not only in meals provided, but in the depth of understanding, empathy, and shared experience that allows a person to flourish. Together, they had discovered the profound power of seeing, understanding, and valuing the human spirit.